Hi, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to all of you who have already known about the Chatfield Edge, and welcome to those of you who are new to us. I am David Hessen. I'm the Director of Programs here. I do the direct on the ground work with the scholars that we work with, and mentoring falls under that umbrella. I'm very excited to have all of you here. This is the fourth webinar we have had in a series of webinars that we are working with to support our students. All our students are at different points in their educational journeys. Some are just at the very beginning, just knowing that they want to go to school, but have not gotten any further than that. Some are in the thick of going to school and balancing work and life. And some are just either at the end of their program or have just graduated and moving into the workforce. So, one of our four pillars, which you can always explore on our website, chatfieldedge.org. One of our four pillars is ongoing mentoring on a one-on-one aspect with our scholars. And tonight we're going to focus on that mentoring aspect. So I wanted to tell you just a little bit about some of our students and mentors. Our scholars at the Chatfield Edge can be involved in any type of educational program. So it could be a short-term certificate program, a trade school, a two-year school, a four-year traditional university. And we have students in all kinds of areas, healthcare being the most common, but also things like pastry arts, business, hair and cosmetology, barbering, media production, all kinds of things. The time commitment traditionally for a mentor, we ask, is for 1 hour sessions each semester. So once a month for the semester, fall and spring. Uh, you would meet initially with me. We would talk about the program, and then we offer a training session for mentors that gives you resources. And then we just continue to be a resource for you ongoing as you meet with your students. So that's just us in a nutshell. A few housekeeping items about tonight. Our presentation itself will run about 30 minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. Please mute your microphones while you're watching, especially if there's noise in the background, etc. We will have some polls and maybe some interactive things as well, so be ready for that. And of course, you can jot down your questions to ask at the end, or if you're afraid you'll forget, don't have something to jot it down and want to just put it right into the chat box, we have somebody who's monitoring the chat and can handle all of those things as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeannie Bros Judge from the Marketing Pack, who is also a mentor with us, and she's going to be facilitating the panel tonight.
Thank you, David. Just in case you're new to Zoom, if you would, the chat function that David just talked about, if you see at the very bottom of your screen, there's audio where you can mute yourself, video where you can mute your video if you want, and then just two over is the chat box. So if there's anything as we're talking, you just want to jot a question down, we may ask it during the panel or we may just hold questions till the end. We'll just see how things go. My name is Jeannie. I'm actually in Minnesota. I live in Minnesota, but I'm from Cincinnati. And I work for a group called the Marketing Pack. And we've been working with the Chatfield Edge since the very, very beginning of the Chatfield Edge. And it's been exciting to see a group of people who came around a table, a big, long table, who had a lot of ideas about how they wanted to continue a mission that was changing. And I think that the hard work that that group of people did to develop the four pillars of the Chatfield Edge, this educational endeavors part of just bringing people who say, I want education, but I have no idea where to start. I'm not sure what to do. I don't know what program to go into. I don't even know where to go to school. So I've been able to privileged to watch the team at the Chatfield Edge guide students. And then sometimes some of the barriers that students have, including needing financial assistance or needing just extra support. The Chatfield Scholars portion pillar. Um, and then my gosh, I'm blanking on the third pillar. Um, Bob, help me out. I know the last one.
That's the education endeavors.
Oh, it is education endeavors. I think
Education
I
is
said that one
first.
first. Okay, so it is education endeavors. A Future Now is the third one. Future Now
Mhm.
looking at mentoring and connecting students as they're finishing their programs, helping those students um, move forward. And then servant leadership, and that goes back to the sisters, the Ursuline Sisters of Brown County, who founded the original Chatfield College and support the Chatfield Edge. And they're kind of the pioneers behind, you have to give back to your community as well. So as students are moving forward in their careers and making their lives, the importance of you've been given to, it's important to give back. So um, my background is in creativity and innovation and marketing and communications. And I have mentored with other organizations. And so while I'm not a panelist tonight, I might just add a couple quick things along the way. But I'd like to turn it over to Kelly Watson, who is, and I do mentor one student with the Chatfield Edge. We're new at it. She's taking a break right now. So we're still doing mentoring, even though she's not currently enrolled in class. So Kelly, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Kelly Watson, and I am a mentor with the Chatfield Edge. I've been a mentor with the Chatfield Edge since uh, the Chatfield College transitioned into the Chatfield Edge. I used to work for the college in the fundraising department, and I had the pleasure of being involved with the college's early mentorship program and was really uh, fascinated and encouraged with how the mentoring, a formalized mentoring program, really did provide an extra layer of support to our students. And the students we served at the college are very much like the students that Chatfield is serving through the Chatfield Edge. And it's wonderful to be part of the continuum of that work from Chatfield College to the Chatfield Edge. My background is primarily in the nonprofit sector, in education and the support of it through various development and advancement initiatives. I currently have two wonderful mentees.
I just want to say a word about confidentiality. Kelly, you mentioned that you have two mentees, and we will be sharing throughout the evening about those who we mentor. And each one of the mentors who's sharing about that tonight has received permission from their mentee to share what they will share. So we take that very seriously, and it's important to us um, to value the confidentiality and the trust that we have in those who we mentor. So. You'll hear from Kelly probably about her mentees later on. Jeff, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Jeff Bauer, and I got involved with Chatfield when John Tafaro was president. He and I knew each other from a variety of different community organizations, and then David and some of his colleagues came to visit me at the University of Cincinnati Claremont. That made it a
Yes.
very easy decision to be involved in the mentoring program. My background, I was in industry for about 10 years and then shifted to academe, and I've worked at the University of Cincinnati Claremont for the last 30 years, the last 10 of which have been in the dean's office. So this is a really fun way to get to interact with students on a one-on-one basis that I don't always get to do in my current role.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. And finally, Diane.
Hi, excuse me. My name's Diann Blizniak, and I've been a mentor for Chatfield Edge since the summer of 2023. And I have one mentee and have had her the entire time. So we've gotten to know each other pretty well in these 2.5 years. Um, I've done mentoring in the past. My profession is in education, educational administration. And so I've coached a lot of teachers, and I've also been a mentor to teachers that want to change their specialization or move into administration. So the mentoring I've done in the past has all been work related and more content related than this one has been. So that's been interesting to have a different perspective of mentoring and the issues and concerns that my mentee has had. So I'm looking forward to this tonight. That's all I have to say.
All right. That's all you have to say for now, then.
Okay.
So great. So before we kind of roll into, we've got some questions that I'll be posing to the panel. But before we do that, we'd like to just get to know who all of you are for a hot second. And so Bob is going to launch a poll, and you will be able to participate in this. We just got two questions for you. Um, have you experienced the joy of having someone mentor you? Have you been mentored? And have you or do you currently mentor someone else? So, Bob, I will let you, you should see a poll appear on your screen. So, have you personally benefited from mentoring someone mentoring you in your life? And have you mentored someone else? And sometimes that is informal. Sometimes it's more formal through an organization. But go ahead and submit the poll, and Bob will take a second to um, see that we have a number of people on board to do this. Our hope tonight is to really just share some general pieces about mentoring, but also specifically about mentoring with the Chatfield Edge in the event that this is an organization that you might want to connect with in the future.
Polls closing in 10 seconds.
There you go.
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Let's share the results.
Wow.
All right. So a number of people have been mentored by someone else, and the same is true for um, people who have been in a mentoring role. So tonight, again, we will explore both. So no mentoring experience necessary, and no experience having been mentored necessary either. I just was brought to my attention that my name is not Christine Glenn, but I borrowed a login tonight. So I am Jeannie Judge, but I'm appearing as Christine Glenn. So all right, well, it's good to know a little bit about the experience of those of you who are gathered. We're going to go ahead and launch into the panel. And um, my first question, Kelly, I'm going to ask you, um, what is it that you do as a mentor? And what are some of the joys that you've experienced with your mentoring with the Chatfield Edge?
Sure. So as a mentor with the Chatfield Edge, um, you get a training first with David and the community at Chatfield, and then you go and develop your relationship with your mentee. And you can, everyone is different. You have to find kind of the niche of the best way to communicate, the best times, whether it be text, phone call, email, or in-person meetings. And then we usually check in with each other officially once a month. And during time when things are crazy or extra help is needed, it can be more than that. When things are going smoothly, it can be less than that. But definitely checking in everyone, every month or so, and then sitting down together at some point and kind of looking ahead, seeing what the goals are for the next month, 3 months, 6 months, the end goal. As David was mentioning at the beginning of the panel, every Chatfield student is at a different point in their educational journey, but we are all united by the common goal of degree completion, whatever that is, whether completing a 4-year degree, a 2-year degree, or a certificate. Our goal in the Chatfield Edge community is to get to that point of completion. So when you're meeting with your mentor, that is what you're looking at. Like how do we get there in the long term, the middle term, and the short term? That's how I like to set it up with my mentees. And the joys of that are as a mentor, you are walking alongside your mentee at a really important part of their life. You know, they are at a crossroads. The accomplishments they make, the choices they make, you know, at that during their educational journey will in many ways help determine you know, certain courses of their life. So it's very exciting to be part of that journey and to help along the way, however that shows up, to help students overcome whatever barriers appear. And you never know what hiccup is going to arrive or what barriers, large and small. And a particular joy I've had with my mentee is that, for instance, I my house got to be part of her senior thesis film. It was I got to be the location for one of the scenes in her senior thesis film. I got to watch that whole process. She and her crew arrived with their equipment, their cameras, their sound equipment, and then the actors arrived, and it was fascinating. It was fascinating to watch her do her thing. So, and I know several of the other Chatfield Edge mentees got to be part of another shot in that film. You know, it's a real Chatfield College was always felt like a family, and Chatfield Edge, you know, feels like a family too, and that's one of the big joys for me.
Thanks, Kelly. Diann or Jeff, any particular joys that you've had in the last couple of years as you've walked alongside your mentees?
I think the part that I really appreciate is having an opportunity to participate with them and their families in the various celebration activities that usually result when they're done, and seeing that sense of relief that I have completed this goal and I'm ready to move on to something else. And I would say also helping them make those networking connections, because they tend to be really focused on the educational piece, and we have to remind them that, okay, the light at the end of the tunnel is that you're going to translate this into work. So helping them make those connections is really special too.
I think from a personal point of view, which this is going to seem minor, but when she asked me to set up the next meeting, that always makes me feel good, because I feel like she must value it, and it must mean something to her that she wants to set up the meeting.
You're doing something right, Diann. But there is that thing of, am I making a difference? Like I'm showing up, but am I making a difference? And yeah, we'll talk a little bit about maybe some of the questions and the things that we have as mentors. I actually, a joy for me was my mentee recently telling me that she stopped school. And at first I her reasoning was she stumbled into a really good job. And it was not at all what she thought she wanted to do with her life. Um, and she was thinking she was going to do this med tech stuff. And she got a job in a Montessori school and is thriving. And she said, "No, I promise you, I'm not messing up the Chatfield's plans for me. I'll go back." But it was pure joy to hear how exciting it was for her. And she will start again to pursue now an education degree instead of a med tech degree. So you never know what is going to happen. Um, uh, Diann, maybe conversely, we talked a little bit about the joys. What are some of the barriers that you see students facing um, in this education pursuit?
I can only speak to the one student that I've worked with, but maybe some other mentors have experienced some of these things too with their mentees. If I had to categorize like what the one biggest category is of problems, I guess you could say, that have bumped into the road for her, I would say it's just so much change. She's had so much change occur in her life in such a very short amount of time. And the 2.25 years that I've been working with her. And let me give you an example. As Jeannie said earlier, I talked with my mentee, and she told me go ahead and share anything about her that we've talked about. So I won't put her name in it, but I'll share some of the things that she's had to deal with in the past 2.5 years. The first one is that she added up and told me that she's lived in 9 different housing situations since we started working together. And of course, that also means you're dealing with different roommates, housemates, sometimes people that she never even knew before. And they've been in different cities, they've been close to school, they've been an hour, hour and a half away. So there's been a whole lot of things that you have to deal with when you move, which averages every 3 months. So that's a lot of change right there. There's also been car problems. Her car hasn't worked. She had to replace her car. She's been in 2 car accidents. One of them caused significant enough injuries that she had to drop some classes that semester that she was taking. So that pushed her back a little bit. She's had other health issues that she's had to deal with. There have been relationship problems, coworkers, other people that she's lived with. Of course, at this age, romances come and go. And she's had 6 different jobs in the time that I've worked with her. Every semester, she works pretty much full time, in addition to carrying a full load of coursework. One of her jobs is a business that she herself owns, and it's been growing phenomenally for her. So that's kind of a mixed blessing, I guess, at this point in time. She's also changed her major, and she's had to push back her graduation date 3 times. So as you can see, there's a whole lot of things that she's been dealing with in a very abbreviated amount of time. So we've also had to talk a little bit about stress management, because some of those things are good, some of those things are not so good. So it's been a roller coaster. Fortunately, she came into our working together with great techniques and strategies to deal with that. And I think those have been working great for her, so she's very resilient. But from a standpoint of being a mentor, I think this maybe has been helpful to her because it's added one additional strand of stability, something that you can count on every month. It's the same person you're going to see. They're going to be there for you, listening, paying attention to you, what your issues are. They'll help talk you through whatever's going on in your life so that you can stay on track to meet your goal. So I think that part of the mentoring perhaps has been helpful for her. But perhaps other mentors have seen similar issues with their mentees. Don't know.
Kelly or Jeff?
I'll go with that. For my mentees, Diann was saying, like transportation, that's a big one. Transportation can really, no pun intended, but derail you. And just, what was a 10-minute commute in your car becomes a 50-minute commute on the bus, and that changes a lot. Also, just existing on very thin margins, just even you're doing everything right, you're doing well in school, you're working, you're paying your bills, but one thing goes wrong, one unexpected bill, one car breakdown, one health setback, and that you can be in danger of that domino effect. It's that is one area where Chatfield Edge, it can really help, before the domino effect starts, you can let the Chatfield Edge community know about what's going on, and they can sometimes provide an extra cushion so that you can get through this critical moment and get back on track. For another mentee, not having a barrier is that just not having a really strong foundation in her earlier education and high school education, not having a real strong math foundation, so that now as as a mother of young children and working mom and going to school and just trying to get those classes uh, needed for a healthcare profession, it can be a struggle. It can be a struggle if you haven't been back in school for a while, and if you're math challenged, I am. I know the struggle.
Mhm.
That can be difficult. But to loop back up to the joy, one of my mentees, a joy was watching my mentee just really uh, reach out uh, and use her resources. Go to the tutoring lab, go to the academic support lab. At the first sign of trouble, march right into that office and take advantage of those resources. That school wants you to succeed. Chatfield Edge wants you to succeed, but knowing that it's okay to ask for help is really important.
Listening to that, it reminds me of when we were naming the Chatfield Edge, and someone said, I don't remember who it was, but somebody said, so many of the students are on the edge. They literally are on the edge of completing something or saying, I'm done. And part of my role at the marketing pack has been to interview so many of those students. And I listen to the stories of students who are now in their 40s, 50s, 60s, who have decided to go back to school in whatever form. And they say, well, yeah, but in my 20s, this happened. And I just stopped and I couldn't go further. But now I feel like I can. So it's exciting. So when we talk about all those, the joys, the barriers, for those of you who have not been a mentor, you might think, well, how am I supposed to do that? I'm not trained in that. So I want to take a minute and I want to do another poll, and then we're going to come back with a question for Jeff. Um, but the poll is this. Bob will launch the poll. But I'd like to just get a sense of what do you think that the main skills are necessary for mentoring? And most four-year colleges don't have degrees in mentoring. So none of us who are speaking about this have a certificate saying we're qualified. So when you look at that from your perspective, there are many skills necessary, but from your perspective, what three skills would be most important for you to have as a mentor? Things that would equip you to deal with the joys and the challenges that, some of which you just heard about.
We're at about 30 respondents so far.
Okay. Take
I
maybe
think we have
another
about
couple of minutes.
75 participants.
So let's take another couple minutes and should have said this at the beginning of these polls. There is no right or wrong answer to these. Um, well, I'm,
That's
I'm sure
correct.
every one of the skills that's on there, someone has used one of those. Some may be more important given the mentee, given the situation, given the day with the mentee. Um, yeah.
Okay, we're slowing up a little bit. Let's give it about one more minute.
Okay. Jeff, while we're giving it that minute, anything you want to share about barriers that you see students dealing with?
Yeah, just to kind of follow up, I would say that it's very inspirational to add to the joy bucket to see them break through the barriers and the issues that they're dealing with. And I would say keep in mind that many of the mentees are first generation college students, so they don't really have a resource to tell them how to college. And many of them are part of a sandwich generation that they may have parents living with them, they may have kids living with them, they may be living with a variety of different folks, as was mentioned. So the number of things they're juggling is truly impressive.
Yeah.
All right, the poll is closing in 10 seconds. Five, four, three, two, one. In the poll. Let's see what the results show.
Mm. I am not surprised that listening is on top of that list. Listening and empathy, take a minute and look at that. Maybe see where you land. in terms of where your choices were. It doesn't really matter. It's not a comparison, but um, and most of us probably when we answered that likely had someone or a situation in mind. Um, so listening, all of these certainly important. Empathy, trust, knowledge in the same field. Sometimes that's really helpful. Um, Communication, goal setting, and adaptability. Jeff, I want to give you a chance to kind of take it away and talk about some of the skills that you bring to the mentoring relationships that you're part of, or that those who mentor you have brought to you. Where do you acquire listening and empathy and communication and those kinds of skills?
Sure. Well, I think that observation and listening is probably one of the most important things. Keeping in mind, again, that many of these students don't have that type of outlet for people that can just listen and then provide more of a coaching versus giving answers. I certainly try to do that with my own children. So, I'm here to be your coach, but you need to make the decisions about what's best for you. And I can talk options with you and discuss those things, but I'm not going to make the decision for you. So that really helps. And I always joke, Yogi Berra said you can observe a lot just by watching. So just being in their universe and observing the kinds of things that they're dealing with and the questions that they have will teach you a lot. The other thing that I think is really important is providing positive feedback. I think of positive feedback as, their cell phone battery, and their cell phone battery is probably not at 100%. And each time you give them a little bit of positive reinforcement, you're boosting that battery and giving them some confidence to take on whatever the next hurdle is that they're dealing with. So, that comes from a variety of different places, even having, younger siblings as you were growing up, perhaps coaching. If you've been a coach, I used to coach my kids' teams. If you've supervised people, there's lots of different ways that through annual review processes and things like that, that you've probably gained some of those skills just on a day-to-day basis. Um, I would say another piece is providing tough advice, which I think is empathy with a little bit of maybe a kick in the butt. So
Mhm.
I've not done that with a Chatfield Edge mentee, but I've done it with former students, telling them really what they need to hear versus what they want to hear. I had a student a number of years ago who was clearly bright but ill prepared for class. And it was because he was hanging out with buddies who were dragging him down. And I had a conversation with him in my office and I said, you need to get a better set of friends. I said, these guys are never going to make it. You're clearly bright, but if you don't prepare, you're not going to make it either. And he listened, and a couple years later caught up with me when he was graduating. And I was like, wow, okay, there's one saved, which
Yeah.
I'm more proud of that than the 4.0 student that comes to us that we just put a little bit of polish on and send on their way because they were probably going to be successful in spite of us. So again, it's going to be some folks with those kinds of challenges. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, the other piece would be helping with the networking. A lot of the especially younger mentees may not have those networks built for those of us that have a bit more experience. So I bring that kind of skill to the table, and I jokingly call it vitamin C, that you have to have those connections when you're ready to graduate. Time to move on, you have to have that network in place. So I
Thank
think
you.
everybody can bring empathy to the table.
Mhm.
That's a skill you can develop over time.
Diane, thank you, Jeff. Diane, it reminded me of something you said earlier when you said your mentee knows that every month you're going to be there. You just will show up. And that consistency, that's just super important. And maybe consistency from an outside person. I know sometimes I hear things very differently when someone outside my home or family says something to me versus any one of the people who live with me. Um, and I have a 26-year-old son who has been working on a certificate since he was 19. He just turned 26. I believe he'll get that certificate in June. As a parent, it has been super challenging. I have said many times, I wish he had the Chatfield Edge and I wish he had a mentor. And as a parent, we've seen some things just start to click in the last semester. And he came to me and he said, um, my teacher said she wanted to be my mentor. It was taking an interest in someone And he kind of didn't know what to do with that. Never mind that his parents, who are both highly educated, have been like trying to help him, but it was never about us. It was about someone somewhere else that says you matter. And I'm just here for you. So um we can, if any of the panelists want to come back to that, we can. Kelly, sometimes people say, I certainly don't have what it takes to be a mentor. I'm not skilled enough. Kind of the I am not worthy kind of thing. Any thoughts about that?
Well, I would say to that, have you ever struggled along the way to achieving something you really care about? Then
Mhm.
you can be a mentor. Mentoring, we're all on this in this life together. We all setbacks. We all face challenges. We all benefit from encouragement and support. Yeah, you and you can be a mentor. Your life experience prepares you to be a mentor as well as your professional experience. I think mentoring for the Chatfield Edge um, uh, requires that you draw from both. You draw from both your personal experience and your professional experience, whatever it may be. But um, you are bringing you have you have the opportunity to bring an outside perspective, to someone's life. You develop the trust. You can see the struggles, you can see the goal, and then you can offer perhaps a fresh viewpoint just because you're a bit outside the the weather of that person's life. You're a bit outside the weather. So it's life experience is perhaps the best preparation to be a mentor.
I think I want to add to that. David, you said it a little bit at the beginning. I don't want to put you on the spot, but feel free to unmute your microphone if you'd like to.
Sure.
My experience of being a mentor with the Chatfield Edge and with some other organizations is that I've not been thrown to the dogs. Um, that I've been equipped with, here's some training. And David, I was really comforted in my first meeting with my mentee that you were part of that. That you
Mhm.
sat down. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you do that and how you've seen that launch some really good mentoring relationships?
So, I work with all of our scholars. I work with all of our scholars, so I also do mentoring. But, I'm the face that they have seen throughout this whole process. And so they trust me and they're used to me and they understand that I have their back, which I say all the time to them, that I'm on their side, that it's, I'm here for them. I'm not here for anyone else. I'm not here for any school. I'm not here for their families. I'm not here for their jobs. I am here for them, and what their goal is. Um, so, with that in mind, I don't want them to feel disconnected by me handing them off to this supposed stranger, that we're bringing into it. So it's important for me to be part of that handoff, and it helps because I still communicate with the whole group. So they haven't lost me for sure. And I will say, Kelly Watson, for example, her newest mentee, when I emailed the mentee that we were setting up this meeting, her mentee was like, "Oh no, is it time already? It's that time." Like she knew it was coming. And I said, "It is that time because you're ready for it. You need it." And I always say, just to add in, our mentors are I say the first line of defense. The mentors are the ones who are doing what I cannot do because I have to circle around and meet with new students. And so, they're the ones who are keeping in touch with our people. And if there are issues going on, we don't expect the mentor to solve the issue. We expect the mentor to just support and encourage and to sometimes recognize, to say, maybe you should talk to David about that, or maybe, or the mentor contacts me, or, all those various things, so that we keep that communication going. And so what we're really doing with the student, and why I'm part of it, is we're just building that student support network, to relate back to what Jeff Bauer was saying. We're giving them a Chatfield network so that they can then hopefully build a network after they leave, and speaking about some things that Diann said earlier, yes, many of our students go through very similar things to what Diann was saying with her student. Those are not uncommon things. But the thread through all of that, at least as far as Chatfield goes, has been Diann being part of it. That's what has been the thread. And so that's why we are there. Now, her particular student, I know, has some other support resources, et cetera, from family, but some of our students don't have any other resource at all. And so we're the only person who is paying attention to what is happening with them. So that's very important. And I will also add in to something that Kelly said. Kelly's two mentees are the perfect illustration of how our mentors have students to deal with. One of Kelly's mentees has the school thing, has it down, has it good to go. She's got school in the bag. She is new and young to life, however, and sometimes balancing the life part, is where Kelly's mentoring really has come into play. How to keep that balance so that the school thing can happen. The other mentee is the opposite. She's got her life together, not where she wants it to be, but she is handling life. The school thing she does not have down, right? That's out of her element. So, one reason Kelly's so good is because she can focus on the life aspect with one, and then sort of the school aspect with the other. And together, it all makes an equal balance. But her students really illustrate that point of sometimes we have to really focus in one area or another, depending on what our student needs. And that's what we do, right? We're going to be there, whatever the case may be.
And David, I think that goes back to one of those characteristics of a mentor that was on the list, adaptability, knowing when and how to, you kind of have to be Gumby, just to be able to bend and to go, okay, I'm going this way now.
Yeah.
Jeff, I'd want to give you a chance to talk about, we've talked about some of the challenges that the mentees face. We've talked a little bit about this, but maybe just we have two more questions and then we'll open it up for Q&A. What are some challenges you've faced in your role as a mentor?
I think the first key is communication and thinking about how they want to communicate. So some of the mentees will be very young, and text will be the most important thing to them. At the college, we have a number of people that want to have their advising appointments through email, which I think is terrible. I would not be a good mechanism for me or a medium for me. But again, the focus needs to be on the audience, what's going to work best for them. And within that challenge, there are sub-challenges. So I had a mentee who was very busy juggling lots of things and would occasionally ghost for a time period. And David would send an email saying, "Give me an update." And I was like, "Update is there's no update this month." And it was frustrating, but it was kind of an ebb and flow. There was a surge to it, and it was based on the mentee's needs. So again, not the focus on me, the focus on them. That's when they needed that help. The last piece I would say is probably aligning goals. So making sure that the goals that you have and the goals that they have for the mentoring process and the timeline and how the communications are going to occur, that you've had those conversations so that the expectations have been set and everybody knows what to expect.
It's really helpful. I want to do one more question, and then we'll open it up, Diann. David mentioned a time commitment at the beginning. Kelly did. Your experience about the time commitment that it takes for your mentees, because I think it does vary for everyone. But can you talk a little bit about the time commitment or really the investment in that other person who you've decided to invest in?
Right. So David did mention that we're asked to meet with our mentee 4 times a semester which averages obviously once a month for about an hour. And they ask us to meet in a public place, and we've done that. I would say usually when we meet, it's 2 hours because both of us just want to keep talking, I guess. And there's a lot to share. And then between meetings, we text back and forth, Merry Christmas, good luck with exams, that kind of stuff. Where we meet and when we meet is totally up to us between the mentor and the mentee, which I appreciate that flexibility very much. Sometimes we meet by her school, which is about a 45-minute drive for me. Sometimes we meet by my house. Sometimes we meet in the middle. So if you want to put a little bit more time in there for your travel, you might have to do that. But we've also met virtually sometimes too, which has happened and has been convenient if the weather's bad or something comes up. So there's an awful lot of flexibility in how you meet and where you meet in the time that you spend on it. I would say that I really feel from a personal perspective that this is not a whole lot of time in the course of a month to have to spend with somebody. And yet I get the impression that it has been impactful for my student. And I'm just going to go on for a minute and talk about this if you don't mind, Jeannie.
That's okay. And then we'll open it up for Q&A. Thanks, Diann.
Sure. So if I would put this plea out there, if you are considering mentoring, I would say just do it, because this little bit of time that you put in during a month may very well be fairly impactful to somebody else's life. And I say that based on a conversation that I've recently had with my mentee, because as was mentioned earlier, some days you wonder, am I doing anything impactful? Is this having any effect? I don't really know. And so I asked her straight out about 2 months ago, so has having a mentor been helpful? And she said yes. And I said, well, tell me about that. And she says, well, when I have a mentor, it's helped to keep me in school, which kind of flabbergasted me to hear her say that, to tell you the truth. So then I asked her, how so? How has it helped you in school? And she said, well, I have somebody telling me, you've got this and you're doing a great job. And that totally floored me, because that's not what I was expecting. When I started mentoring here, I was thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to have anything I can talk with somebody who's generations younger than me, obviously? Will I need to know all the stuff that's going on in college today? Will I need to know, I don't know, financial aid? Will I need to know how to register for classes? Will I have to know any of that technical stuff? Will I have to know how to advise her to work with other students, or my student is young, a typical age? Will she have to have advice on working like group work with other students? Am I going to have to be really inspiring, exceptionally brilliant, have incredible insights? I mean, I was just really worried about all kinds of things like that. So when she told me, having somebody tell her that you're doing a good job and you've got this, and that evidently was what she needed, it was like, oh my gosh, of course, I can do that, and hopefully I have been doing that. So my expectations didn't really align with, in terms of what I found her needs actually were. They were more basic. And then I also asked her, well, what about when you talk with students and friends that are your own age? Does that help you at all? And she said, well, when I talk with students my own age or kids my own age, they're on their phone and they're not paying close attention to our conversation. Which, okay, doesn't every parent feel that way to start with, but anyway, okay. And she said, and I found they're not really very critical thinkers. So the fact that we've been able to problem solve together, analyze things critically, come up with solutions and alternatives, evidently that's really been helpful. So I would just say, if you're considering being a mentor, just go for it. If in fact you can perhaps listen more than you talk, if you can build a relationship with somebody else, if you can analyze situations and help them problem solve so that they can continue on their goal, then you know what? You've got this. So go ahead and sign up.
That's Diann Blizniak, commercial for mentors at the Chatfield Edge. That was perfect, Diann. And a good transition. So, I appreciate all of the panelists for sharing what you've been doing for the last few years. Because I think for each of you, it's been a couple years, at least a year, but a few years. I want to take a minute. What are your questions? And you can either drop them in the chat or go ahead and unmute your microphone if you want to ask a question to one of the panelists or somebody from the Chatfield Edge team. Anybody? What are you thinking about, given all that you've heard?
I'd like to comment a little bit about the intake process at the Chatfield Edge and how we vet students to see how serious they are. Can we really help them and support them? We originally, when we set up the Chatfield Edge, we wanted to be intentional about helping students who wanted help. So we weren't interested in having an organization that just had a transaction and wrote scholarship checks and checked a box here or there. It's a long-term relationship. And so what we found through our intake process is the people that select us and that we choose to help want to be here. And we've had folks who didn't necessarily want to come in for the financial assistance, but they heard about the mentoring aspect and some of the other things we do from other classmates that are in the Chatfield Edge. So I think that's important to know that it's not just anyone that knocks on the door gets in. We were looking for someone who's intentional and serious. Maybe they've been to school before, but it's been a long time ago and they just had some bumps in the road. We get that. A lot of our students are, adults with children and they're trying to improve their lives. So I think that's important. And it's good for me to reflect on that, I think, because as I'm hearing these stories, it sort of warms my heart that they're looking for something that nobody else is providing. You're paying attention, you're listening, you're coaching them through decision-making processes, you're providing critical thinking. I think they're looking for that type of thing. They're not getting it anywhere else. So hats off to all of our volunteers that make this happen and provide that key support that we know these students need to be successful. There's a lot of hard work with it. There's a lot of hand-holding along the way. And if they're in a 4-year program, we're in a 4-year program with them. So it doesn't just go from semester to semester. And they do stay with it. So that's important too. It doesn't matter what you say sometimes, it's how you say it. And just that little bit of encouragement to let them know somebody's got their back, and we're in your corner, and we're not going to let you give up on yourself that easy.
Mm-hmm. One of the questions in the chat is, what are some ways to support the Chatfield Edge as parents and as society globally? So certainly becoming a mentor is one of those ways to support the Chatfield Edge. I know that financial support, it is a nonprofit. That's another way to support the Chatfield Edge. Um, I don't know if there's more to that question, or if anybody else has other thoughts about ways to support.
I think just, I think also just sort of being in the community and talking about the Chatfield Edge, bringing awareness of us to the community at large, your neighborhood, your friends and family and church groups. And, we're still young in the game a little bit. And so people are still just learning about us. So, you just saying, hey, I think there's some people who could help when your neighbor is talking about their, nephew who is 20 and doesn't know what to do. You say, well, I know these people who that's what they're there for. And that really, for me, is one of the great ways that people can help, is just to spread the knowledge of us out there in the world from, Hillsborough into the city, and all areas in between. We're happy to be there. And I'm super mobile. I will go anywhere and meet with anyone, as I say. So I do that all the time. I'll travel back and forth along 32, up to Wilmington, up to Butler County, out to Harrison, wherever I need to go. I'll do it.
Thank you, David. One of the questions that was just put in the chat was, how do mentees come to the program? And really, it is It is word of mouth. Last year, we had the scholarship brunch. So every spring, all the scholars and mentors and community members are invited to a brunch out at Ursuline Academy. And I called it the break room conversation or the break room breakout. One mentee stood up and said, "So, well, I found out about the Chatfield Edge from my cousin, and then with that, other people start saying, "Oh, well, I found out about it because I work with him. I found out about it because I work with him." And really,
Mhm.
that's how it's happening. It's a family member who says something. It is it is somebody at one of the schools who says, "I've heard about the Chatfield Edge. I think they could help you." So I think really, as much as we pride ourselves on doing digital marketing and all those kinds of things, it is social media. It is just telling someone. Um, I would say this if you'd like to learn more, if you're not familiar with the Chatfield Edge, um, on the website, chatfieldedge.org. There are some new in the news section. There are tons of stories of individual. We call them scholars because they are all scholars, regardless of what program they're part of. They are. It's a. I think it's a prestigious word to use that elevates people to believe in themselves. And so there are stories of scholars and there are stories of mentors. It's chatfieldedge.org in the news section. So that's one place if you want to learn more um, or want to share that with others who are interested. Any other questions before we kind of wrap it up? We've got 1 minute left and two things to do. Thank you, Christine. Christine just put the information about actually mentoring where it is on the webpage, so you can click that link. We do have two webinars coming up. So again, you'll get information about these via email. There'll be a follow-up email that comes out tomorrow. We'll do another webinar on January 24th. Sorry, February 24th. Um, we have a woman who works in health and wellness from UC who will be coming on board to do wholeness, healthcare, stress management. And then we'll have a webinar on creative problem solving. And in February, on in no March 24th. So it's February 24th and March 24th. Um, growth mindset and problem solving. So if you have questions, reach out to David. If you're interested in mentoring, go onto the website, sign up for the newsletter, or fill out the form and let us know. And I think the last order of business, Bob, is you are going to announce an Amazon gift card winner.
Yes, I am. And it will be a digital gift card. I'll email that to you tomorrow. So enjoy. And the lucky winner is, drum roll please, Christine Carson.
There you go.
Hooray!
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate you taking time to be here. We hope that it's answered some questions for you about mentoring. And if this speaks to you and you wake up tomorrow morning and say, I got this, be in touch with us.
Yep.
So,
I put my
thank,
email in the chat box, so feel free to reach out and email me.
great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.